Start investing in gold and silver at sdbullion.com today and join over 35,000 precious metals investors who have made the switch to the lowest gold and silver prices in the industry. SD Bullion recently claimed a spot on the prestigious Inc. 500, making them one of the fastest growing bullion companies in the United States. With low bullion prices and over-the-top customer service, SD Bullion is setting the standard for precious metals transactions. Visit www.sdbullion.com today. Start saving on every precious metals purchase you make.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah Johnson with SilverDoctors.com, and with us today is Morten Strange, an independent financial analyst from Singapore and the author of Be Financially Free. Morten, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for showing an interest in what I'm trying to do. It's great talking to you.
Definitely, and it's great talking to you. And the first thing I'd like to discuss today is about your book, Be Financially Free. Now, in your book, you advise ordinary people on how they should position themselves for a future of slow or no growth and impending constraints in the economy caused by diminishing space and resources. So can you tell us first about how the economy and the environment are related to each other? Because I know this is something you really focus on.
Well, I've been interested in finance and economics for many years, and I'm also interested in the environment. I started out as an oil field engineer many years ago, and I retired about 30 years ago from working on the rigs. And I was financially free at that time, financially independent. And I used that independence or that freedom sort of to sit back and see what needed to be done. And I realized that there is a contradiction between the economy, the way it's going, and the state of the environment on the other side. There seem to be two groups. I got involved in nature photography and nature publishing. I started a company publishing nature books for a while. So I attended all these functions with environmentalists and biodiversity students. And on the other hand, being interested in the economics and the environment, I also attended large gatherings of investors. And there was a huge disconnect. What I realized is, on one hand, we're being bombarded with news about the deterioration of the environment, and on the other, we are being urged that economic growth has to continue. So I decided a few years ago, I decided to go into financial analysis full time, and I qualified as a fund manager and a financial advisor here in Singapore, where I live now. I ended up more or less by accident. And studying those sources that were available to me, I've come to the conclusion that some of the problems we have in the economy, that the economists and finance experts deal with, I actually have root in the fact that we are hitting some limits to our ability to grow the economy in the conventional sense, relying on extractive industries.
Now, so why, in your opinion, can't the economy grow exponentially forever?
It cannot. It's not a matter of whether we might want it to, and everybody's talking about we need to go back to growth, but it simply cannot. I found some sources. I started reading Herman Daly, and an old timer in this field. He wrote a book like 20 years ago about beyond growth, and basically the concept is simple, that you cannot grow continuously in a confined space. That's not possible. Other sources like Richard Heinemann, an American journalist who wrote The End of Growth, he identifies 3 reasons why we cannot grow the conventional economy as we have been doing. One is that we're running out of resources in the sense that we're running out of easily obtainable resources. And the second reason is that even if we keep extracting resources like fossil fuels and burning them, or plastic production, or a number of other issues, the pollution will start becoming a problem. It could be air pollution, like in China, is choking China, or it could be pollution in the ocean, or it could be global warming, if you like, a climate change. That the pollution in conjunction with production is starting to simply choke in the economy. And the third, and in my view, most urgent aspect that will limit our ability to grow is that we are expanding the level of debts to an unsustainable level, and that will force us to revalue our economic models. So what we need to consider when we're talking about economic growth is that there's a disutility to economic activity. There's a utility, but there's also a disutility. And people like Herman Daly and some of his students have been working on this. Herman Daly has an example that if you cut down a tree and make it into a table, then that's very good if you really need a table really badly. But there's also a disutility. You lose a tree, you lose the services that the tree used to provide. And if you keep doing that, if you keep cutting down trees and building more and more tables, and they just pile up in a warehouse, eventually that disutility will exceed the utility of the economic growth. And I personally feel that we are getting to that point where a lot of our growth are churning resources over, but without real benefit to. Without generating real prosperity.
You've mentioned in a recent article that you wrote that Singapore's economic growth is decreasing, and this is where you live. Do you want to talk about this? And is this also happening in other parts of the world?
I believe it is. If we look at those 3 factors I mentioned, one of them is that the raw materials are getting harder to extract. I used to work in the oil business. I used to work out on the oil rigs in the North Sea and in Asia. And when the oil business was young, like in West Texas or in Saudi Arabia, the ratio of oil produced in relation to the energy spent producing the oil was about 100. For every barrel of oil you used to produce the oil, you would produce 100 barrels. That has come down, and it's not like that we are running out of oil. It's the fact that we're putting in more and more capital expenditure, more and more resources to get the same results. The energy recovered or the energy invested is now down to 30, 20 for the tar sands up in Alberta. It's down to less than 10 for alternative. For something like the ethanol, the production is like zero. We're just running on the spot. So a lot of resources are being used to produce the same result. What is happening is that the GDP keeps going up, but that the welfare, the productivity is not increasing accordingly. And what is happening lately is, after the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, is that not even that is happening. There's another source that I enjoy sort of studying, Daniel Albert. He's a former banker, and he wrote The Age of Oversupply. And we have a huge it's a bit of a paradox, but we in an economic situation where there's hardly any growth, we actually have a huge supply. We have an oversupply of oil. We have an oversupply of steel. What is happening is that we cannot grow the economy because we already have enough. You know, two of Herman Daly's students wrote a book that's called "Enough is Enough." One of them is Rob Diaz, and he was in Singapore earlier this year, and I spoke to him at a conference there. And his take is that we're simply hitting the limits where enough is enough. And there's a British economist, a lady who wrote the economics of enough, who sort of agrees with that. The mainstream economists want us to, like the IMF and most politicians, they want us to go back into and they say the problem with the stagnating economy is that we need to go back to growth somehow. But it's not really clear how we're going to do that. In Singapore's case, Singapore is a fantastic place to be. Did you ever interview Jim Rogers? Because he's a wonderful financial person as well. You know Jim Rogers, the investor.
Yes, I do. It would be great to have him on sometime. I haven't had the pleasure though yet.
Yeah, you should have him on. I mean, he's just wonderful. He sometimes turns up here at our events. He made the decision to move to Singapore. He lives here with his family now. He's got 2 girls that he's very proud of. And Singapore is a wonderful place to be. I love it here. But we are hit like everybody else. We are hit by the constraints to our ability to expand the economy, and it's something that puzzles people. And to me the answer is staring us in the face, that we're simply hitting the limitations of how we can expand. I mentioned in that article you mentioned that I have published in a local paper. Here in Singapore, we're running out of roads. We don't have room for all the cars. We could expand the economy enormously if we just let everybody buy all the cars they want. People here has a lot of money, and the young kids love to drive fast cars, but we can't. We have something called a COE, a Certificate of Entitlement, where you have to apply to own a car, and the government is controlling the number of cars that are on the roads. As far as I know, this is a pretty unique system. I happen to agree with it, because we just, if we allowed all the cars on the roads that people wanted to have, they would be like United States. People here have got tons of money. They would buy 2 or 3 cars each. But there's a quota. Cars here are rationed. You cannot buy all the cars you wanted. If people did that, we'd end up like Bangkok. We'd end up in one big gridlock, and Singapore is just one example. Most cities in the world are choking on cars. And that goes back to the issue of the age of oversupply that Albert is dealing with, and enough is enough. That we just there's just not room for any more cars. And did you know that my sister was born in 1950? In 1950, there were 20 million people living in the Philippines, which is a country nearby here in Singapore, beautiful country. Today, some 60-plus years later, there is 103 million people living in the Philippines. It has gone up from 20 million to 103 million in just my lifetime. I mean, this has some implications that we simply cannot grow anymore. There's still a lot. 26 million out of the 103 million live below the poverty line. There are a lot more poor people in the Philippines now than there was in 1950, when there were only 20 million people total. I mean, these are some of the numbers we're up against. This exponential growth of population and of everything else cannot continue. And in Singapore's case, of course, they, like all countries, they work hard to keep the machinery going. Luckily, we don't have any unemployment. In fact, we import labor, so there's a huge cushion should we reach unemployment levels. And the place is wonderfully managed by a very clean government. So they're really doing all the right things. In spite of that, growth has basically come to a halt. This year it'll be less than 2%. Next year maybe 1.5%. Most of that is the government building infrastructure, hospitals, and train stations, and that sort of thing. Basically, we're just stagnating. I mean, we're just stagnating or slowly shrinking. And in my view, those factors are very much environmentally based.
Now, what are some of the ways that people can survive and thrive in this kind of new economy? You're saying we're headed towards, or maybe already there, this slow or no growth economy. Can you discuss how people can prepare or survive and thrive in this new economy?
In my view, this is not a good time to go out and squander all your wealth. In my book, building on my own experience that I'm not a big shot and I never made millions of dollars. But what I did was, when I had a decent income, I saved most of it, and I tried to find other ways of generating a buck. When I was in the oil business, I would take pictures of the rigs and write articles about oil drilling or places that I visited for travel magazines and for nature magazines. So this is just one example. Nowadays, you can make money using the internet as a tool. What you should do was, to gain financial freedom, you must make some money. But equally important is that you don't spend it all. There are a lot of rich people who get into trouble because even though they have a huge income, they spend even more. So don't get into debt. Mark Faber, who helped me write the blurb for the book, he was here and he said, in investments, it's very important that you don't use leverage. In my book, I say, don't gamble. I also say, which is quite controversial, and I've been criticized for that, but I say don't buy insurance. The insurance industry is a racket. If you go and gamble at the casino, we have 2 casinos here in Singapore, and if you gamble there, the casino industry operates with a concept they call the hold rate, which is basically the percentage that they take out of the turnover at the casino at the Marina Bay Sands, which is owned by Las Vegas Sands. The hold rate is about 2.5%, maybe 3%. So if you go and gamble with $100, you get 97 back at the end of the night. If you keep doing this on average. If you keep gambling, you'll always lose all your money. This is a mathematical fact, but this is slightly different. Anyway, in the insurance business, the hold rate is much more. The hold rate is about 30%, not 3%, but 30%. For every $100 you buy insurance, the insurance company will keep about $30 of that and use it for administration, and that's why it's very important that you don't gamble against yourself by buying insurance. A lot of people spend a lot of money on insurance, Mark Faber, like as I mentioned before, he has a banal observation, but he says we don't know what will happen in the future, and that's very important in investment and planning your financial position, that you don't know. So all you have to do, since you don't know the future, all you have to do is look at the numbers. You have to be cynical and simply look at the numbers, and your chance of winning in an insurance game is very poor. So don't spend your money on insurance. Save as much as you can and invest it wisely. That's what I'm saying. That's what you should do. Don't get into debt. I urge people to keep their consumption down, and there are several reasons for this. First of all, it'll help you personally by building up your capital that you can invest and generate passive income and be free. And secondly, by not consuming a whole lot, you will actually also help the environment that is important to us. It's important that we keep our natural capital and our environment for our future welfare. So basically, make some money, spend less than you make, invest the rest wisely, and just prepare, because now is not the time to go out and squander what you have. I think times are going to be difficult from now on. I think our time of 6 or 8 or 10% growth are over in most likely forever. At least in my lifetime and in my kids' lifetime and in the foreseeable future.
All right. Well, Morten Strange, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we let you go, did you want to leave our viewers with maybe a bright note and where they can find you and your book?
Yeah, sure. My book is available on Amazon.com, and it's published by Marshall Cavendish here in Singapore. They've been very supportive. Some of my ideas, like I said, are a little bit off the mainstream, but I've been considering the environment since 1971 when I bought my first bonds in the bank, and I remember when oil was $3 a barrel. I bet you don't, but that's what it used to be for many years. All through my childhood, oil was $3 a barrel, and when it shot up to 12, this was a major calamity. And a couple of years later, it was 36. You need to have this. It's very useful if you have this long-term view and perspective of the economy. So, on a brighter note, yes, nature is beautiful and life is beautiful, and go out and look at the coral reefs and the rainforest and the prairie where you live. There are still lots of beautiful places like this, and enjoy the environment and save your money and enjoy your freedom. Lots of people shouldn't be working so hard. They should be saving what they have, work a little bit less, and enjoy their time more.
All right. Well, Morten Strange, thank you once again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck, Elijah. I always enjoy your interviews.